All right, Rhen, welcome to the show, my man. I've known you for a while, and it's really cool to see what you have been able to do in this real estate business in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, it's funny as you say that. I was thinking like, well, I have known Greg for a long time, and you actually used to train our sales team. Do you remember
Isn't
that?
that
You used to
crazy?
do
I do. That was a while ago, man.
that
Yeah.
5 years ago, I think 5 years ago. So
Yeah, buddy. Well, welcome to the show. It's been a long time coming, right? So let's just start with this. You've been in real estate now for a while. What made you get into the business? Because a lot of people have these different backgrounds, and it's always funny to see how they end up stumbling into real estate.
yeah, so pretty unique story, I guess. I started, dude, it's crazy. Like I'm 35 now. 10 years ago, I was a deadbeat bartender with just no future. Right. And, I kind of really started wanting more for my life. And I had a daughter who is 9 now. And that changed a lot for me. And I knew that the path that I was going, my number one ambition in life was just to be a great father. Right. And I knew I had to make some changes. So I did. I went, I got really into people like, Tony Robbins and Jim Rome and Zig Ziglar and stuff like that, and really just found my way, found out how to wiggle my way into an advertising agency. Started out working for free, right? I had no skills, no resume, no anything, but I met this guy and we connected. And I was like, dude, I'll just come work for free. Found a way to make myself valuable, taught myself how to build websites, accidentally sold a website and got a commission check for $2,000. And from that day forward, I was like, boy, I'm a salesman. I am in sales. Because previously I had resented sales because it had this like negative stigma that I associated with it because my whole life, my family told me, Rhen, you talk so much shit. You're so full of shit. You have got to be an attorney or a salesperson. And I just like to talk, right? Like to negotiate, like to get my way with people. And so that was like I set out to do anything but be in sales or be an attorney. But once I got that first commission check, I
Yeah.
said, hey, there's something to this. I made more on that one sale than I had, the previous prior month. And so really got heavy into advertising, learned marketing and advertising very well, and eventually, left that company, built that company up. We did very well there in just a short amount of time. And it was just because I outworked everybody. And then went on to another company with a guy, did kind of the same thing there. And as I was there, I started a vlog, and I started, every week we would put out these videos. And I think it caught the attention of my former business partner. And, I caught on him. I had this little sneaky trick in advertising that I used to do. Um, I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and I joined their ambassador program. And what that allowed me to do is any new Chamber of Commerce member, you got their contact information. You got to call on them and say, hey, I'm an ambassador of the Chamber. I'd love to come out and meet you and see how I can help you. And that
Mm.
was my foot. That was my foot in the door with new business owners business owners that had just joined the Chamber of Commerce. And it was how I drummed up business. So it was my life, and it done very well for me. And so I met this guy who ran, and he was a real estate investor. That's all I knew, and that label, I was just like, man, this guy's got to be rich, which we know most wholesalers aren't rich, right? We just make good money. And so I met him,
Eventually.
and he started following my vlogs, and he really liked what I was doing. And we went for a lunch meeting, and he puts a job out, a job offer in front of me, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I'm an ad man. This is like my identity. I have this vlog, and things ended up over a course of time. We built a relationship, and things weren't really going the way that I wanted them to go. Um, at the ad agency, for whatever reasons, mostly probably my fault. And this guy that offered me this job, he offered me a partnership tied into the job, and essentially said, if you come in and we can hit these revenue numbers, you can effectively double my business. I'll make you a partner. And I really wanted that. I really wanted ownership in something. And so I took the leap of faith. My first day, I was like, what in the F did I get myself into? Because, I knew the CRM was overwhelming. The contracts were overwhelming. They're talking about title and do it. Like I didn't even own a piece of property at that time, And so I just figured out, all right, hey, look, I got to learn this business from the inside out. Where's the lowest place to start? The lowest paid person in the company was a lead manager. I said, I'm going to go start there. And so for 3 or 4 weeks, I just learned lead management. And then I learned acquisitions. And then I learned title and ultimately work like every position in the company. And, I just was not going to fail. I seen it as this is my opportunity. And I was a part of these other masterminds that, there was one guy specifically, my first month on the job, we went to this mastermind. I think it's 7 or 8 figure flipping, something like
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Something
Bill
like,
Allen. Yeah.
yeah. And there was a guy there that they were putting up on this pedestal that was like the king of wholesaling. And he was doing $4 million a year
I know
in
who you're
gross
talking about.
volume.
We'll leave that. Well, I know. Keep going. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, holy cow, like that's like the pinnacle. That is such a big deal. Like this guy, he's got like 50 rentals and he's grossing $4 million a year. And I was like, all right, that's who I'm going to catch. That's who I'm going to catch. And we just went working relentlessly, and every system, every process, every marketing channel, we just brought it in and figured out how to do it. But we kept hitting the ceiling, Greg. And it was me, right? I was a shitty leader, very terrible leader, very, just you wouldn't want to work for me. And so finally, we were sitting in a quarterly strategic meeting with Gary Harper, and we had just continued to miss our goals, right? We're about a year in, maybe 2 years in at this
What
point.
year is this, just for like a timestamp? Like, where are we at in the market? Like, is this like 2018-ish, 2019-ish, 2017?
Yeah, this is probably late 2018, right?
Okay.
And we're sitting in, and we had just missed our goals, and we had all this turnover. And Gary just leans back and he says, I know the problem. And we're like, what is it? And he's like, you guys got a leadership problem. You don't have a work ethic problem. You don't have you're bad leaders. And so from then on, a light bulb clicked. And I was like, you know what? If this guy who consults with all these businesses, as bad as, as much as my ego told me that wasn't the case, I had to take his word. Like Gary's a pretty credible guy, consults with a lot of businesses. He's
He
telling
knows
me
some
I'm a
shit.
crappy leader. I'm probably a crappy leader.
Yeah.
And so, boom, all the effort that I had put into learning real estate and learning sales and all that, I just turned into learning and studying like great leaders and what they do and the language that they embody. And we took a course as an executive team with Larry Yacht, SEAL team. And that was a huge paradigm shift, and then I started following a couple guys, Dr. Kevin Elko, if you don't know who he is, look him up, phenomenal leader. And just really, really went on this, what would you call it? Just this journey to improve my leadership, because what I realized is I was the ceiling. I was the ceiling in the business as the leader, and we were not going to grow past where I could take us, so to speak, and my partner at the time. And so really began to work on the fundamentals there, our recruiting process, our hiring process. We just kept building, kept growing, kept attempting to scale, failure after failure after failure. And then, we look up 4 years later and we're at $20 million a year in revenue in 9 markets. 9 markets is 9 offices, 200 employees. Like we had a call center in Belize. It was pretty wild, man. It was pretty wild, but like most things, all things come to an end. Seasons change, and I ultimately ended up leaving, parting ways with that company back in July. And we've been able to go do it all again in Atlanta very quickly, right? I think I'm 8 months in Atlanta, and we'll hit $1 million, I think, by August if we can hit our forecast, and we will. It's just people and it's just time.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing, dude, that you've been able to come in and strategically, I like how you started with like the leadership bottleneck, because a lot of people, they go from like doing it on their own and making some money, and then they go hire a team and it just takes a shit. And then they're just all of a sudden they're like, you know what I mean? And like sometimes they'll call me, and I'm not certainly not a leadership expert, but I have a small team myself. So I've learned the hard way most of the time. It's like the language they tell me, how they communicate with their team is like, I'm like, dude, you sound like a dictator. I'm like, no wonder they don't want to show up to your office. Like, you don't care about them, And they're like, you know what I mean? It's just, you got to think about them first. And then that's how you can really become a better leader. That's what I've learned, at least.
Well, if you're 100% right. Here's the thing that happens that I see the most. The way we lead ourselves is how we think we can lead other people.
Yeah.
Like the conversations that go on in here, you don't want to hear those conversations.
No.
Like, I can talk to myself however I need to talk to myself to fire myself up, right? If I'm not closing a deal, I'm like, Rhen, explicit, cuss word, cuss word, cuss word. You're a sorry, lazy piece of shit. You better get out there and close this deal.
Yeah.
Well, if you tell your employee that, you don't get the same result. And so, and the biggest problem in leading people is typically for someone who hasn't went down this journey, people tend to make it all about themselves, right? And what I want as a manager, a leader, executive, and that is the complete opposite of what actually gets results. You have to really care about the employee, what's important to them, how they reach their goals. And then when you chain a team together and they all are united and they're working individually as a team to reach their personal goals so that the team reach their collective goals, then you find real traction, real success.
Bro, that is so freaking true. Cause I remember when I hired my first team member, I was like nervous as shit. And I didn't really know what I was like. I had zero experience doing this. And then all of a sudden, over time you learn, like, I remember when I hired my first acquisitions guy, I was like, if I can set this business up to where this business will help him achieve his goals, this will be really successful. And then I started making it all about him, and all the work he was doing was helping him get to the next level, which then ultimately grew our business. And I was like, this makes sense. You know what I mean? And then I have all these friends, they go through acquisitions people every 2 weeks. It's like a churn and burn factory. And you've been able to have people stick. So let's talk about, like, I guess, sales leadership, which is something you're an expert in. You guys got to the point, and now you're at the point again in Atlanta where you have a legitimate sales team, right? So what do you guys do to, like, and you actually mentioned something I'd like you to cover again on this podcast. You mentioned this in another podcast I heard. You like to hire people who are professionals, who actually have some responsibility, not going and hiring the Neanderthal 20-year-old who doesn't, who's picking his belly button lint, who has no skin in the game. I want you to elaborate, because that was a big takeaway I got. And it makes sense that with my team now,
Absolutely. What we're ultimately trying to build is an elite organization, right? Mm-hmm. And I hold a lot of things in business very parallel to sports, because I think that there's a lot of similarities when you examine a championship caliber team, right? Like the team that wins the Super Bowl or the team that wins the NBA Finals. Like, if you look on a very micro level, from how they organize their practice to the language inside of their organization, to how they take care of their health, to how they take care of, the finances of the organization, to who they choose to come onto the team. If we ran our businesses like that, there would be nothing that could stop us. And if I'm building a championship team, I want to draft, so to speak, championship caliber teammates. And then that championship caliber teammate must come on the team and earn their starting spot every single day. And so if we're holding that parallel to business, well, what does a championship caliber teammate look like, right? Somebody with a pedigree, somebody that is ultra successful, right? But to get drafted into the NBA, you have to have been an elite college athlete, athlete. And what we do is we go out and when we're building a business and recruiting people, we're not hiring elite professional employees. We're thinking, who will come in and do the minimum, and hopefully I'll get the maximum, but I'm going to be able to pay them as little as possible to get in.
It's crazy,
right? It is, and it's silly, right? And so, my philosophy is like, when I'm hiring someone, especially someone in a sales role, I want to know, first, are they gainfully employed? And I want to know how much they're currently making. I want to hire someone that is currently making and exceeding 6 figures a year, because what that is going to tell me that, they have a floor of expenses that must be met every month. And so let's say, hey, we go out and we hire this 23, 24-year-old kid. He lives with some roommates, so his rent's $400 a month. He drives a Honda Accord, so that's $329. So now we're at $729 a month, and then he needs to eat. So really, the guy needs to earn about $1,500 a month. And then if he has anything left over, it's going to partying or traveling or whatever. But so his floor, his minimum earnings that he will earn every month is, call it $2,000.
Yeah.
Right. So he's probably going to close 2 deals. Yeah. He's going to close 2 deals a year. I mean, 2 deals a month to make that money. Well, let's look at the other side of the coin. If you go out and you hire somebody that's married with 4 children, whose wife drives a Mercedes, their mortgage is $4,000 a month, $3,000 a month, they have $8,000 in expenses per month, they are going to show up and operate at a completely different level than that, the previous spoken subject, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want someone who has worked their way up. They know how to work a sales process. They know how to make 10 grand a month. There's
Yeah.
a big person. There's a big difference in what's between the ears and somebody that knows how to make $10,000 a month and somebody that knows how to make $2,000 a month.
True.
And that's the caliber of person that I want on my team. And then, but then the trouble that you run into there is, let's say I'm courting you to come work at my company, Greg, and you're in a successful sales career and you're making 10 grand a month, and you love my company, you love my culture, you love the opportunity. But when you say, well, all right, what's the comp plan? And I say, oh, it's straight commission. You're thinking to yourself, okay, if you're smart, you ask, well, how soon, what's the cash realization cycle? How soon does somebody start earning commissions? Well, in wholesale, it's probably about 45 days, right?
Yeah.
You get a
If
deal
not
under
longer, depending on where
contract.
you are. Yeah.
It's longer in my company, right? I was being conservative there. So, are being, pretty given there. But so let's think about that. Just break it down. Best case scenario, day one, you close a deal, you get a deal under contract, takes, 45 days to close it. And then you're not getting paid until the next payroll after the deal closes, because if you're a business owner, I'm not cutting you a check every time. So we're looking at 60 days, call it, until you get a paycheck. But and then that paycheck, that's just one deal. And if your average commissions are 20, you make $2,500 a deal, and I think that's being, pretty giving. In 90 days, you're going to make, if you're running the numbers and you're smart, you're saying 90 days, I'm going to make 2,500. My bills every month are 8,000. Then you go have the conversation with the wife. What is she going to say?
Are you crazy?
Are you crazy? I don't care how much you love that job, how much opportunity. We got bills. Little Brittany's in private school. Like, how are we going to pay our mortgage? We don't have a bunch of savings for you to go make this huge career shift, and maybe you don't get a paycheck for 90 days. So what do you do then? Well, you find out what their minimum expenses are. This guy needs 10 grand a month. You give him 10 grand a month. And people think, oh my God,
How could
I
you do
can't.
that?
How could you do that? Well, here's the truth. My math may be off here, but 10 grand a month is about $350 a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We pay more than that for a lead sometimes, Greg.
Dude, I pay $625 a lead on some shit, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a lead.
One lead. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're telling me that you won't pay $350, $400 a day for an elite all-star? But it has to be set up in a very specific way. And I'll tell you what that talk track looks like. Hey, guy wants 10 grand a month. I'm going to give him a guaranteed pay for, call it 3 months of $10,000, $30,000. I'm very uncomfortable at that point. And so we have to set proper upfront expectations. Hey, Greg, I'm very uncomfortable, $10,000 a month, but I believe in you. You have a proven track record. I know you're elite. You rolled up in a bin. Somebody's been paying for that, right? I know you're 35 years old. I'm hoping your dad still isn't paying for that. I'm assuming your commissions are paying for that. Here's the deal. I'm going to pay you that $10,000 a month, which is effectively $350 a day. Here's what you're going to do for me. You're going to be the first person in the office. You're going to be the last person to leave. Here are your KPIs. You will not miss them, and you must get a contract in the first month, no matter what. Do you agree to that? And it's not that outlandish.
That's a reasonable request, bro. That's very
reasonable request. And here's the thing. If they get one contract in the first month, and our average profit per deal is, call it $25,000 in Atlanta, then I almost got a 3x return on my investment in that person in the first 30 days.
Yep. On the overhead you spent, because that revenue just got booked out for 45 days after. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, unfortunately, not everyone can stomach a $10,000, investment like that for 3 months. But here's the thing. There's plenty of people out there that will take less, but don't make it $1,500. Like, hey, I'm going to give you a base salary of $24,000 a year. Like, dude, come on.
Dude, what you just said is why so many people burn through acquisitions people, is they don't have someone who has a 6-figure identity, bro. And that's the thing that I realized is, like, why I've had a really good one for a while, and he's getting even better. He's got a 6-figure identity, and that's where his thermostat's at. And he knows how good he is, and he understands his role. And now he's on track to make 150 this year. And it's like, because that's his expectations. And now he's got a lifestyle that he has now. So I see people, they try to just get these people overseas, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're trying to get someone to buy a house overseas in the Philippines, in San Diego. I'm like, dude, good luck doing that. Because if you're competing with someone else, like Phil Green or someone, you're going to get destroyed. Like they have
destroyed.
Yeah. It's not
destroyed.
Fair. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And that correlates into all positions. I know guys, their director of marketing is in the Philippines. And I'm just like, how? You may be saving money, but you are costing yourself millions of dollars.
Oh my gosh, if not more. Yeah, it's crazy how people, and they just, because it's a short-term decision. It's like, it's the decision that you just kind of shared with the listeners was like, it doesn't feel good in the short term paying someone 10 grand a month, but in the long term, it feels amazing. It's the opposite when you go cheap. It feels really good. I'm getting these cheap people right now. The first 30 days, I don't have all this overhead coming out. But then in the long run, when they're performing like crap, now all of a sudden you're like, wow, what if I just did this the right way the first time? You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
So let's talk about how you were able to start and then now grow this business now in Atlanta, which is not an easy market to operate in. I'd imagine it's pretty tough over there with I guess the prices. I don't know Atlanta from it, but it seems to me like Atlanta, like everyone's moving there. It seems like it's a pretty good real estate market to compete in, with demand.
Yeah. I love Atlanta, right? I love Atlanta. I think one mistake, I call it a mistake. I say mistake, but one thing that we didn't have the foresight to understand is, as we were building that previous company, we were operating along the panhandle of the Gulf Coast, in the South, right? Where the
What is this, like Alabama, Florida,
Florida, yeah, Mississippi, where the median house price, like where I live in Mobile, is $137,000. And what I found to be held true is your average profit per deal, which is the primary driver of revenue inside of your company. That average profit per deal typically trails north or south 10 to 20% of the median house price.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah. And so Atlanta, the median house price is $330 something thousand. And we've been able to maintain about a $25,000 average profit per deal through this little downturn that we're in now. And prior to that, I know that it was much higher, and they'll come back to that. We'll get better, but maintaining that widget, which is the average profit per deal, is good. And so I say that to say I love Atlanta because it's got a higher average price. And I was always scared to go into a major metro before because, and we discussed this through our expansion, because of the competition. We thought, hey, let's just dominate these tertiary markets. Let's not go play in it. We want to go where we can dominate. Well, the truth is Atlanta, there's just no sophisticated competition in wholesaling. That's the truth, right? There's probably 50 wholesalers in the country that I would consider sophisticated.
Yeah.
That are dialed in, that are running legitimized, corporatized businesses, right? When you say names like Phil Green or Doug Hopkins or, these
Property
guys.
Force. Yeah.
Those are legitimate companies,
big
right?
boys.
That have, and they're sophisticated, but there's so much market share, right? Atlanta has like 6 million people. 6 million people. I know for a fact that by the end of this year, according to our forecast, by the end of next year, by the end of 2024, I'll be doing over 100 deals out of Atlanta, and per month, and will not touch the market share. There's just so much.
There's so many houses, dude.
There's so many houses. And so we've been able to go in very quickly and build a team. And here's another thing too, which is amazing. Check this out. No super talented person grows up in Mobile, goes off to college, and decides, I'm going to go back to Mobile and start my career. Doesn't happen. They go to cool ass cities like Atlanta, Chattanooga, Nashville, San Diego. I mean, look where you live. You're super talented. Did you want to stay in the town that you grew up in?
No.
Heck no. You knew how
I just
to make
got a
money.
second house there now.
Live somewhere freaking cool.
Yeah. Now I just got the second house whenever I want to go back and visit.
Yeah. So, and so the talent pool that we're able to draw from in Atlanta is phenomenal. We're able to hire at an exponential clip and get good talent. 6 months in, I think we have currently staffed 12 acquisition managers, 5 disposition managers, and we're doing really, really well. And so I previously was scared of a little competition, but now I think it makes you better. when you
It
lean
puts you on
into
your
it.
toes, man. And you said you're in a tier one city, bro. When you're in a tier one city, you just hit the nail on the head. Think about Atlanta. There's so many movie businesses there. There's corporate jobs. There's call rails based out of Atlanta. All these
Yeah.
companies it's like the hub of the South besides Miami, right? So yeah, it's cool to see how you're able to kind of go from those smaller markets into the Atlanta market and really start to
Yeah.
ramp up. You know what I mean?
I wish I would have done it years ago. I wish we would have started there. I wish we would have started there
Have
because
you found the dispo easier in Atlanta because it's such a big because it's a tier one city, right? There's more
um
buyers.
there's exponentially more buyers. You know, all the hedge funds are buying
Yeah.
there. Hey, can you give me a second, please? All the hedge funds are buying there. I mean, it's just there's tons of cash buyers. There's tons of people, and so I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy. Well, first off, dispo is really easy if you got a good deal, right? If you got a crappy deal,
I say that to everybody. You got a good deal, it's not too hard to sell it.
yeah, I don't care where you are. If you got a good deal, you should be able to sell it. But we're able to leverage different tools now. We're able to sell to different type of people. We don't just have to sell to the professional fix and flipper or the professional landlord who want to negotiate and can only buy deals, 50, 60 cents on the dollar. We can sell to retail buyers. We can sell to retail investors. We
Yeah.
can leverage realtors. And so, I love it, man. I love the competition. I love the amount of housing stock that exists there. I love the price point. And I love the talent pool that we're able to draw from.
Yeah, dude. That's amazing, bro. That's amazing. And how far do you live? Like, how often do you have to go there? Are you 100% like virtual at this point?
I go every 2 weeks. So we have an office there. We operate there. We
Okay.
have a corporate office there. I go every 2 weeks. I'm up there.
What is it, like an hour flight to get there?
So it is 45-minute flight, but I actually drive.
It's probably not that
And
far.
it's about a 6 hour drive, and I know that sounds crazy, but I live, and so when you do the math, I live 40 minutes from the airport, so call that an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you got to get to the airport an hour before you board,
2
so
hours.
there's 2 hours, and then it's an hour flight, and then it's an hour drive to our office to get out. It's an hour to get out of the airport in Atlanta, and then
Oh,
it's
it's
an hour
here.
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's an hour drive to our office, which is Northwest Atlanta in Buford. So there's 5 hours. There's 5 hours there, and
Yeah.
it's a pain in the ass. And that's if there's no delays, your luggage doesn't get lost, right? All of that. So I can hop in the car and be on the phone literally for 5 hours straight, which I'm on the phone all day anyway, and I have no disruptions in service. I get great time to think on the road and do planning or listen to Audible books. So I find it's a better use of my
Yeah.
time to be in the vehicle, because it takes me just as long to fly, and I have an interruption of service or interruption of workflow due to navigating
I love
riding
it.
a plane.
Dude, that's awesome, man. You guys are like the dominant force down in the Southeast. So as we start to wind the show down, I got some questions on how you're able to ramp up in Atlanta quickly. So you go into a market. So you've done this now, with your first company, you came into the real estate business. Now with the second company, now you had to start over, but you had all the knowledge, skill sets, and all the stuff that you developed over the last 4 years. So when you guys decided you wanted to jump into Atlanta and revamp the business there, what was like your 90-day kind of like game plan runway to start to get the momentum? Because everyone knows once you get that momentum, it becomes a lot easier to scale it out from there.
Yeah, so something that I left out is I do have business partners in Atlanta, and it was some guys that I was mentoring
Okay.
before I made the shift out. And so I made the shift. I was mentoring. I told them guys, I'm like, hey, I'm no longer with this company, and they were like, oh my God, then come work with us. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in a partnership, but I am coming to Atlanta, and maybe we can collaborate on some things,
Yeah.
because Atlanta was the closest market where there was not a conflict of interest. I didn't want to go down that path. So I could go there and do business, and I knew it was a market that I wanted to be in. And these guys at the time, their primary model was selling to hedge funds, right? And this was July, and they only sold to hedge funds. They did not have a direct to seller. They did not have a cash buyers list, right? A lead would come in, they'd go put it in an offer pad. Offer pad would say, hey, we'll pay this, and they would go get on the phone with them, do it virtually, and just offer them less. Well, the fortunate news is there's been a massive appreciation in Atlanta, and anybody that's owned their house over 5 or 6 years have a good amount of equity in it. And then on top of that, all of these hedge funds were paying like 120% of ARV. And so they could like freaking pay, they would get on Zillow and say, The Zillow would say 450, the hedge fund offer would be 460, and they paid, 290 for it. And so they could come in and get it, $10,000, $20,000 under what Zillow says, which is easy to do, and then turn around and disposition for an average profit per deal like 40 grand. They told me, Greg, check this out. If the deal, and
That's
I make fun
crazy.
of them. I make fun of them to this, and they killed it, right? They did like in their first year over $1 million in revenue. They had a $600,000 wholesale fee, which is their claim to fame.
On a
They
single
thought they
family house?
no, a package of 4 houses to a hedge fund,
Wow.
$600,000 wholesale fee. So anyway, they if they weren't going to make $40,000 on the deal, they wouldn't even look at it. That's how spoiled they were, right? And we always laugh and make fun of them about this. And so once I told them I was leaving, they were like, "Rhen, we got to do something." The hedge fund stopped buying in July, and their revenue went to zero. And
Oh, it
we
just
went
dried up
back.
overnight. That was their only thing. It was just hedge funds, and that was it.
Yep, that was in luxury flips, and we knew what was coming there. They would do big time $1 million flips, and so we went back and forth, and ultimately, like, I had to make the decision: hey, do I go and invest $150,000 potentially over the next 6 months of my own cash, with a lot of uncertainty? I was confident in myself, but or do I go and partner with these guys? They were able to, we worked out a deal to get some equity, and all, it made it work. They gave me a good offer, and so we did. And they had a small team: one acquisition manager, one disposition manager, one title gal, and then the two of them. And we come in and had a bunch of turnover, and just got it ramped up, right? And implemented everything that I knew to implement, and just got to work, right? Every day, relentlessly. Started talent. First hire we made was a recruiter, right? And people will say, "Well, what?" But here's the thing: I have a professional recruiter that's been doing this 20, 30 years. He works 50 hours a week and is only able to hire 2 to 3 people per month.
Wow.
Full-time recruiting, because we are going after that talent level. And that is a big bottleneck in people's company, is their inability to hire A players with speed.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been able to do. I have 12 of them now. Only 8 of them are actively working, and the other 9, 10, 11, 12, the other 3 are in queue to come on, right? We have some workforce planning, and we want to make sure that we don't over leverage our cash flow, because we're bringing on people with big base salaries for
You're
the
bringing
first 3
on big.
months,
You're
right?
bringing on big adults. This is a professional organization, not a
Big adults. We
yeah.
were looking at our P&L last month, and our forecasting for this month. I have $50,000 in training pay this month.
Training pay?
50,000 training pay, which is their guarantee for the first 3 months.
Oh,
But
like you said in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the first guy that we locked up, and when I told Clinton Tyler that we had a guy come in, right? First guy that I hired, he had to have $10,000 a month. Had to have
That was his
$10,000 a
non-negotiable.
month. That was his non-negotiable. And they were like, I was like, just trust me. Just let's roll the dice. I'll foot the bill. And they were like, well, you're not gonna foot the bill. The dude bought 11 houses in his first month with no real estate experience. He sold software.
Look at the revenue on that. 11 times, even if you just made 20 a deal. I mean, that's
even if you go, like, only half of them closed, right? Only half of them closed. So there's 6 times 20 is what? You do the math. That's 120 grand.
120 grand, and you paid him 10 grand a month. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer. It's almost a 10-to-1 return. I mean, that's playing the long game, bro. That's playing the long game and not playing the right away game. And that's the thing with, I think Steve Trang said this one time, who learned it from Darren Hardy. You're financing talent. You're not like paying a guy or a girl 100 grand up front with a check. You're financing the talent over time, man. Like, it's like you just every month, if they're performing, obviously they're still on the team. You're paying them, and obviously there's a spread between what you're paying them and what you're bringing in. And it's tough. I feel like the thing with Rhen, when it comes to like growing a legitimate business, what you've been able to do is a lot of people get started and they're like working at a job. Maybe they're making 80 grand a year and they're sick of doing that for someone else. So then they go and they start a real estate flipping or whatever, wholesaling, whatever, being an agent. It's all the same, really. Transactional real estate. Now they're making like 200 grand a year. So they have more money than they ever had, but they've never really like started a legitimate business. So then they get into this situation where they're kind of like pigeonholed, making like 200 grand a year. They don't have any employees and they just don't know how to get to that next level. But you've been able to look at this business over the last 6 years from like a scaled standpoint And that's what, you became world-class at doing, man. And you've been doing, big things on the education side too. So it's really cool knowing you for so long, seeing what you've been able to do and grow these businesses big time. It's super impressive, bro. I genuinely mean that.
Yeah. Well, I
You know?
appreciate that. I can tell you that I play a small part in it. A very small part. I try to surround myself with smart people, who are way smarter than me, right? I don't have a college education. I made awful grades in school. Like I had to do like community service at the school to even graduate,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother story. But it's about the people that you surround yourself with, man. And I'm not going to fail. I know it's possible, right? Like you said earlier, having that identity, like what is your identity? And if you can conceive it, you can believe it, you can achieve it. And but you got to be willing to fail, man. And in talking of failures, I'm the biggest knucklehead you'll ever meet, right? Like I've gotten in so much trouble. I have, made every leadership mistake, every business mistake, but I just continue to learn from it and continue to put other people first and give, as much as I can. And it somehow it works out for me.
I love it, brother. It's amazing. I have a great friend of mine. His name Eric Hatch. He's a big real estate guy up in Fargo, and he's got a book he wrote, and it's called "Play for the Person Next to You." Right? Not playing for you. Play if you go every day and you go to your business or your life every day, and you're playing for your teammates, and you don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
Everyone with that mindset, raises up and levels up. So it's impressive to see what you've been able to do and what you guys are going to be doing in the future. So if people, I mean, I know you've actually, since you've transitioned too, you've been offering some training out there with Steve, and you got some others. So if people want to like kind of find out, maybe they want to work with you, connect with you, what's the best way they can reach you directly and then reach out to some training you have?
Yeah. So we do a lot of stuff now in the education space. I started a coaching company called Wartime CEO, where we teach people how to be a wartime CEO and not a. It's easy to be fat and happy in peacetime, and business is war. So we go to war every day. Uh, I know. And then Steve Tring and I do Sales Leadership 2.0, where it's just a paradigm shift of how to lead people. Flip that org chart upside down and become a servant leader. So, but yeah, man, you can reach out to me really on Instagram is the best place to do it. It's just at Rhen Bartlett.
At Rhen Bartlett. That's easy enough. I see you putting a lot of content out there too, so it's always great to see that. And dude, keep doing big things. Let's stay in touch, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, buddy.
100%, bro.